The context of the Berserkers and Ulfhednar reveals a world where survival, spirituality, and warfare were inseparable threads in the fabric of Norse society. During the Viking Age, which spanned from the late 8th century to the early 11th century, Scandinavia was a harsh and unforgiving land where communities were scattered across rugged coastlines, dense forests, and isolated fjords. This environment shaped every aspect of life, creating a culture that valued strength, resilience, and adaptability above all else. The Norse worldview wasn't one of separation between humanity and nature, but rather a constant negotiation between the two, with humans existing as part of a larger cosmic order, governed by unseen forces. In this context, warriors who could channel the primal energies of animals like bears and wolves weren't just military assets. They were essential figures in maintaining the delicate balance between civilization and wilderness, order and chaos. Their presence in society reflected a deeper understanding of power, one that recognized the spiritual dimensions of combat and the mystical forces underlying human existence. These warrior traditions had significant implications for Norse communities, demanding resources that went far beyond what ordinary soldiers required. The transformation process wasn't something that could be achieved through sheer willpower alone. It required rare herbs, specific metals for ritual tools, and access to sacred sites that often lay far from settlements. These materials weren't just commodities, but vessels of spiritual energy, each imbued with meaning and purpose. For example, wolfsbane, a key ingredient in many transformation rituals, had to be gathered under precise astrological conditions, during certain lunar phases or when particular constellations aligned. The gathering itself was a ritualistic act, requiring purification rites and chants to ensure the herb retained its magical potency. Similarly, the crafting of weapons and talismans followed strict protocols designed to capture and preserve spiritual energy within the objects themselves. Blacksmiths who specialized in creating these artifacts weren't mere craftsmen. They were practitioners of an ancient art, blending metallurgy with mysticism to produce tools that served both practical and supernatural purposes. The economic burden of maintaining these practices meant that only wealthy or well-supported communities could afford to train and sustain such warriors, making them symbols of status as much as instruments of war. Culturally, the role of Berserkers and Ulfhednar extended far beyond the battlefield. They occupied a liminal space in Norse society, existing somewhere between revered heroes and feared outcasts. On one hand, their abilities made them invaluable assets during raids and battles, capable of turning the tide with their ferocity and seemingly supernatural endurance. Sagas and oral traditions frequently depict them leading charges, breaking enemy lines, and striking terror into the hearts of adversaries. Yet on the other hand, their very nature made them unpredictable and potentially dangerous even to their own people. Tales abound of berserkers losing control during transformations, attacking allies, or succumbing to uncontrollable rage after a battle had ended. This duality created a complex relationship between these warriors and their communities. While they were celebrated for their achievements, they were also kept at arm's length, often living apart from regular society in remote locations where their transformations wouldn't endanger others. Some communities established special compounds or sanctuaries for these warriors, places where they could undergo their rituals without risk to civilians. These spaces became repositories of esoteric knowledge, guarded by elders who understood the delicate balance required to maintain harmony between human consciousness and animal spirit. Historically, the rise of Berserkers and Ulfhednar coincided with periods of intense conflict and expansion across Scandinavia and beyond. As Viking raiders spread throughout Europe, establishing trade routes and colonies, they carried their warrior traditions with them, leaving traces of their influence in local folklore and spiritual practices. The encounter between Norse mysticism and foreign belief systems led to fascinating syncretisms, where elements of Christian, Celtic, and Slavic traditions blended with Norse shape-shifting practices. In some regions, these interactions resulted in hybrid forms of warrior magic that combined Norse transformation techniques with foreign protective spells or healing rituals. For instance, accounts from the British Isles describe Viking mercenaries who adopted local wolf spirit practices while retaining core aspects of Norse transformation rituals. This cross-pollination of ideas demonstrates the adaptability of these warrior traditions, allowing them to survive and evolve despite external pressures. At the same time, however, exposure to Christianity posed significant challenges. Missionaries often viewed these practices as pagan superstitions or demonic pacts, leading to efforts to suppress or eradicate them entirely. In response, many communities adapted their rituals to appear more acceptable to Christian authorities, disguising magical practices as folk medicine or agricultural ceremony. This underground transmission ensured the survival of core principles, while allowing surface-level conformity to dominant religious structures. The training and initiation of Berserkers and Ulfhednar followed a rigid hierarchy that mirrored broader Norse societal structures. At the top sat kings and jarls who maintained retinues of elite warriors, including those skilled in transformation magic. These leaders didn't just command armies, they were seen as conduits for divine power, capable of commanding supernatural forces and demonstrating their authority through mastery over such warriors. Below them existed various levels of free farmers, craftsmen, and tradespeople, many of whom contributed resources and support to maintain these warrior traditions. The lowest rungs of society, thralls and outcasts, sometimes found paths to power through these practices, though often at great personal cost. For example, historical accounts mention thralls who underwent transformation rituals in exchange for freedom or social elevation, only to become ostracized once their service ended. This stratification created multiple channels for transmitting warrior knowledge, with formal training available to those of appropriate status, while more informal, sometimes illicit pathways existed for others seeking transformation. The resulting network of practitioners ensured the survival of these traditions even during periods of political upheaval or external pressure. Gender dynamics within these warrior traditions add another layer of complexity to their social structure. While most accounts focus on male warriors, archaeological evidence and saga literature suggest women also participated in similar practices, though perhaps through different rites in achieving distinct forms of power. Female practitioners, sometimes referred to as Valkyries in mythological contexts, wielded influence through their connections to fate and death, complementing rather than competing with male warriors' roles. These women weren't passive observers, but active participants in the mystical framework of Norse society, serving as seers, healers, and occasionally warriors themselves. Their involvement in transformation rituals often centered around weaving protective spells, guiding souls to the afterlife, or invoking ancestral spirits to aid in battle. Marriage alliances between warrior families often involved exchanges of magical knowledge and ritual techniques, suggesting these practices formed part of larger systems of social and spiritual capital transmission. This intersection of gender and supernatural power created additional layers of meaning within these traditions, with different forms of transformation granting access to various aspects of cosmic force. Seasonal rhythms played a crucial role in shaping the timing and nature of warrior transformations, reflecting the deep connection between Norse spiritual practices and natural cycles. Winter months, when agricultural work slowed and darkness dominated daily life, saw increased focus on spiritual practices and transformation rituals. Sacred sites became centers of activity during these periods, with communities gathering to witness and participate in ceremonies that strengthened their collective connection to primal forces. Spring and autumn equinoxes marked particularly potent times for transformation, aligning with natural cycles of renewal and change. Summer months focused on practical applications of these powers, with warriors preparing for and executing raids, while harvest seasons saw integration of gained knowledge and energies back into community life. This cyclical pattern ensured that warrior practices remained integrated with daily life, rather than becoming isolated mystical pursuits. Even legal systems recognized and regulated these warrior traditions, though often indirect. Formal laws addressed issues like compensation for deaths caused during uncontrolled transformations or property damage resulting from ritual activity. More importantly, unwritten codes governed the behavior of transformed warriors, establishing boundaries between acceptable and unacceptable uses of their powers. Violations of these codes could result in severe consequences, reflecting society's need to maintain control over potentially dangerous individuals. The presence of these regulations suggests that warrior shapeshifting wasn't viewed as supernatural fantasy, but as a genuine phenomenon requiring careful management and integration into social structures. Artistically, expressions of these warrior traditions permeated every aspect of Norse material culture, from carvings and metalwork to textile patterns and weapon designs. Each motif carried layers of symbolic meaning, serving multiple purposes, documenting successful transformations, teaching initiates about proper symbolism, and maintaining connections to spiritual forces during non-ritual times. Specific motifs repeated across different media created a shared visual language that helped unify disparate communities around common understandings of power and transformation. For example, spirals carved into stone or woven into garments symbolize the journey inward to find one's animal spirit and the outward manifestation of that spirit's power. Triangles represented the three stages of transformation: human, transition, and beast, while circles embodied the cyclical nature of power and the interconnectedness of all things. The creation of these artworks itself often followed ritual protocols, with artisans undergoing purification rites and working during astrologically auspicious periods to ensure their creations carried proper spiritual resonance. This attention to detail reflects an understanding that artistic expression wasn't separate from spiritual practice but integral to it. External pressures from neighboring cultures and expanding trade networks influenced the development and preservation of these warrior traditions. Contact with Christian missionaries and other religious groups introduced new challenges and opportunities for adaptation. Some communities incorporated elements of foreign practices into their transformation rituals, creating hybrid systems that maintained core principles while adopting new techniques. Others responded by reinforcing traditional methods, emphasizing purity of practice and stricter adherence to ancient protocols. These interactions contributed to the evolution of warrior traditions over time, with different regions developing distinct approaches to maintaining their mystical heritage while navigating changing political and cultural landscape. For instance, areas closer to Christian Europe might have adapted their rituals to include elements that appeared less overtly pagan, while remote regions preserved older, more esoteric practices. This regional variation speaks to the flexibility and resilience of these warrior traditions, allowing them to persist even in the face of overwhelming external pressure. The legacy of these warrior traditions extends beyond individual communities to encompass broader patterns of cultural exchange and adaptation. As Norse peoples expanded through raiding, trading, and settlement, they carried their warrior practices with them, influencing and being influenced by local traditions. This cross-pollination of ideas led to the emergence of regional variations in transformation techniques, while maintaining fundamental principles of merging human and animal consciousness. The spread of these practices across Europe left traces in local folklore and magical traditions, contributing to the rich tapestry of European occult knowledge that persists in various forms to this day. Understanding this wider context helps explain how warrior shape-shifting traditions survived and evolved despite numerous challenges to their existence. For example, traces of Norse transformation magic can be found in Scottish clan lore, Irish fairy tales, and even Eastern European werewolf legends, each bearing subtle markers of their Nordic origin. This diffusion of ideas demonstrates the enduring power of these warrior traditions, transcending geographical and cultural boundaries to leave lasting impressions on the collective imagination. The persistence of these warrior traditions through historical upheavals demonstrates remarkable adaptability and resilience. Periods of famine, plague, and political instability tested the limits of these practices, forcing practitioners to modify their methods while retaining essential elements. Some warrior groups retreated deeper into wilderness areas, establishing hidden communities dedicated to preserving ancient knowledge. Others integrated more fully with emerging social structures, finding ways to maintain their traditions under the guise of acceptable cultural practices. This flexibility allowed warrior shape-shifting traditions to endure through centuries of change, adapting to new circumstances while maintaining their core purpose of connecting human consciousness with primal forces. The ability to evolve without losing fundamental identity speaks to the depth and sophistication of these practices, suggesting they tapped into universal aspects of human experience that trans specific historical context. Whether operating openly in remote valleys or secretly within urban centers, these warriors continued to serve as bridges between worlds, maintaining vital connections between human society and the spirit realm. The legend of the Berserkers and Ulfhednar stands as one of the most enduring and enigmatic chapters in Norse mythology, offering a window into a world where humans willingly embrace the primal forces of nature to become something more, or perhaps less, than human. These warriors, shrouded in myth and superstition, weren't mere soldiers or mercenaries. They were conduits for ancient powers, vessels through which the spirits of wolves and bears flowed freely during the chaos of battle. The Berserkers, whose very name has become synonymous with uncontrolled fury, and their wolfish counterparts, the Ulfhednar, represent a fascinating intersection between human ambition and animalistic instinct. Imagine standing on a windswept battlefield, the air thick with the scent of fear, as figures move among the carnage with an unnatural grace and ferocity that defies explanation. Their eyes burn with an otherworldly fire, their bodies seemingly impervious to pain, and their war cries reverberating like the howls of wolves or the roars of bears. These weren't ordinary warriors, but something altogether different. Men who had forged pacts with ancient spirits, trading pieces of their humanity for raw power and supernatural abilities. The transformation wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, psychological, and deeply rooted in the mystical traditions of the Norse people, connecting them to forces that modern minds struggle to comprehend. What makes these warriors particularly intriguing is how they embody the complex relationship between humans and the natural world in Viking culture. Rather than viewing animals as simple beasts to be hunted or domesticated, the Norse saw them as powerful allies, each species possessing unique qualities that could be harnessed through proper rituals and devotion. Wolves represented cunning, loyalty, and the ability to move unseen through darkness, while bears symbolized raw strength, resilience, and dominion over the wilderness. By channeling these animal spirits, warriors believed they could access these attributes, becoming unstoppable forces on the battlefield. This connection wasn't superficial or symbolic. It was a deep, mystical bond that required years of preparation and dedication. The historical accounts of these warriors, though often embellished and sometimes contradictory, paint a picture of individuals who existed on the fringes of society, both revered and feared by their contemporaries. Sagas speak of berserkers serving as elite shock troops in the armies of kings and jarls, their presence alone enough to strike fear into enemy hearts. Yet these same sources also describe them as outcasts, men who had sacrificed too much of themselves to the animal spirits they served, becoming unpredictable and dangerous even to their own kin. This duality, the warrior as both hero and monster, lies at the heart of their enduring legend, creating a complex tapestry of meaning that continues to resonate through the ages. Their connection to modern werewolf lore runs deeper than mere coincidence. Many of the characteristics we associate with werewolves today, the uncontrollable rage, the enhanced physical abilities, the transformation triggered by specific conditions, can be traced directly back to descriptions of Berserkers and Ulfhednar. Even the idea of a cursed transformation finds its roots in Norse tradition, where the boundary between blessing and curse often blurred, depending on one's perspective and the outcome of the warrior's actions. The modern fascination with werewolves owes much to these ancient Nordic warriors, who first explored the concept of humans assuming animal forms through mystical means. As we delve deeper into the world of these warrior shapeshifters, it becomes clear that their significance extends far beyond military prowess or battlefield tactics. They represent a fundamental aspect of Norse spirituality and worldview, embodying the eternal struggle between civilization and wilderness, order and chaos, humanity and nature. Through their rituals and transformations, they tapped into primordial forces that continue to resonate in our collective consciousness, manifesting in everything from folklore to modern entertainment. Understanding the Berserkers and Ulfhednar isn't just about studying historical warriors. It's about exploring the dark corners of human potential and the price of power when obtained through supernatural means. These warriors weren't just fighting machines. They were living embodiments of ancient mysteries, walking the fine line between human consciousness and animal instinct, forever changed by their encounters with primal forces. Throughout this entire process, specific tools and talismans played vital roles in facilitating the transformation. Among these, the Hamknota, or shape knot, stood as perhaps the most significant. These intricately tied cords, made from braided horsehair and sinew, were imbued with runic inscriptions and worn around the warrior's bicep. According to tradition, the knots contained the essence of the transformation spell, acting as both trigger and anchor for the altered state. Other important artifacts included Fylgja stones, small crystals or polished stones believed to house protective spirits that would guide the warrior during their transformed state, preventing complete loss of self-control. These stones were carefully selected based on their natural formations and energetic properties, often passed down through generations of warrior families. The timing of these rituals followed complex astrological patterns, with certain phases of the moon considered particularly auspicious for specific transformation. Full moons favored wolf spirits, while new moons were preferred for bear transformations, reflecting the natural behaviors of these animals. Seasonal considerations also played a crucial role, with spring and autumn equinoxes marking periods of powerful energetic shifts that enhanced the effectiveness of the rituals. During these times, multiple initiates would undergo transformations simultaneously, creating a collective surge of energy that amplified individual experience. Perhaps most fascinating were the mental disciplines developed to maintain control during transformation. Contrary to popular belief, successful Berserkers and Ulfhednar weren't those who lost all control, but rather those who mastered the art of controlled madness. This required years of meditation practice, focusing on specific visualization techniques that allowed warriors to mentally construct spirit lodges within their minds, safe havens where their human consciousness could retreat, while the animal spirit took control of their physical form. These internal sanctuaries were often described as forest glades or mountain caves, places where the two aspects of their being could coexist without conflict. The training involved learning to navigate these mental landscapes, creating detailed environments that could be accessed instantly during transformation. Warriors would spend countless hours developing these internal spaces, populating them with symbolic objects and guardian spirits that would help maintain their human awareness while in animal form. The role of community in these transformation rituals cannot be overstated. While the actual moment of shape-changing was a deeply personal experience, the support and participation of fellow warriors and spiritual guides were essential. Elders would maintain vigil throughout the process, chanting protective spells and monitoring the initiate's progress, ready to intervene if the transformation threatened to consume the warrior entirely. After successful completion, warriors would be welcomed back into the community not as mere humans but as living bridges between worlds, respected keepers of ancient knowledge and powerful protectors of their people. The symbolism embedded within Berserker and Ulfhednar traditions runs as deep and complex as the ancient Nordic forests themselves, forming a rich network of meaning that connects warriors to the fundamental forces shaping their world. At the core of this symbolic framework lies the concept of dual nature, the eternal dance between civilization and wilderness, order and chaos, humanity and beast. This duality manifests in every aspect of their existence, from their physical appearance to their spiritual practices, creating a complex system of meaning that continues to resonate in our collective consciousness, manifesting in everything from folklore to modern entertainment. The choice between bear and wolf as spirit animals represents more than mere preference. It embodies fundamental philosophical differences about power and survival. Bears, with their massive strength and solitary nature, symbolize raw power, resilience, and the ability to endure hardship. In Norse cosmology, bears were often associated with Thor, the thunder god, representing protection, courage, and the destructive force necessary to maintain cosmic balance. The Berserkers' adoption of bear symbolism suggests a warrior who embraces overwhelming force, preferring direct confrontation and absolute dominance in battle. Their transformation into bear warriors wasn't just about gaining physical strength, but about embodying the bear's spiritual essence, its connection to the earth, its mastery over its domain, and its willingness to face death without fear. This connection to bear symbolism extended beyond mere combat prowess. It influenced every aspect of the warrior's life, from their social interactions to their spiritual practices. Wolves, conversely, carry profoundly different symbolic weight. As pack animals, they represent community, strategy, and the power of coordinated action. Yet they also embody the shadow side of human nature, the parts we try to suppress or deny. Wolves move silently through darkness, hunt with precision, and maintain complex social hierarchies, making them perfect symbols for warriors who value cunning over brute force. The Ulfhednar's embrace of wolf symbolism speaks to a different kind of power, one rooted in intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to strike from unexpected angles. Their transformation reflects not just physical enhancement, but the cultivation of predatory awareness, the ability to see opportunities others miss and exploit weaknesses with surgical precision. This distinction between bear and wolf symbolism extends beyond mere combat style to encompass broader philosophical approaches to life and death. Bear warriors often viewed themselves as agents of divine will, instruments of fate wielding irresistible force. Their battles were seen as cosmic events, each swing of their weapons carrying the weight of destiny. Wolf warriors, meanwhile, positioned themselves as hunters of fate itself, seeking to outmaneuver destiny through cleverness and force. This fundamental difference in worldview shaped every aspect of their warrior culture, from training methods to spiritual practices to the way they interacted with their community. The paraphernalia associated with these warrior paths carried layers of symbolic meaning that went far beyond practical considerations. The bear pelts worn by berserkers weren't just camouflage or intimidation tactics. They represented skinwalkers' belief in literal transformation, the physical manifestation of their spiritual journey. Each claw incorporated into their armor, each tooth woven into their garments, held specific significance, marking achievements, victories, or spiritual milestones. Similarly, the wolf pelts sported by Ulfhednar contained detailed records of their journeys, with specific patterns and arrangements telling stories only other initiated warriors could read. These garments became living histories, constantly evolving documents of their owners' spiritual growth and martial accomplishments. Weapons and armor bore equally complex symbolic systems. Berserker axes and clubs often featured bear motifs worked into their designs, not just as decoration but as active components of their transformation rituals. The weight distribution, balance, and even the sound these weapons made when swung contributed to maintaining the warrior's connection to their animal spirit. Ulfhednar weapons favored sleeker profiles emphasizing speed and precision, with engravings depicting hunting scenes or lunar cycles that aligned with their transformation cycle. The metalwork itself carried magical significance, with smiths employing specific forging techniques believed to capture and preserve spiritual energy within the weapon's structure. Color symbolism played a crucial role in distinguishing between different warrior paths and their varying degrees of mastery. Black and brown dominated berserker aesthetics, representing earth, strength, and inevitability. Subtle variations in shade indicated rank and experience, with deepest black reserved for master warriors who had achieved complete unity with their bear spirit. Ulfhednar favored gray and silver tones, symbolizing moonlight, shadows, and the liminal spaces between worlds. White accents marked those who had mastered the art of silent attacking, while red signified warriors who had successfully navigated the most dangerous aspects of wolf magic. Numbers and patterns held particular significance in warrior symbolism, with specific geometries believed to enhance or focus transformation energies. Triangles represented the three stages of transformation: human, transition, and beast, while circles embodied the cyclical nature of power and the interconnectedness of all things. Spirals appeared frequently in warrior tattoos and carvings, symbolizing the journey inward to find one's animal spirit and the outward manifestation of that spirit's power. These patterns weren't random decorations but carefully calculated designs meant to influence both the warrior's physical and spiritual states. Environmental symbolism extended beyond personal adornments to encompass entire landscapes. Certain forests, mountains, and valleys were considered sacred to specific animal spirits, becoming pilgrimage sites for warriors seeking deeper connections. The arrangement of stones, the flow of rivers, and the position of ancient trees all contributed to these locations' spiritual significance. Warriors would incorporate aspects of these sacred geographies into their personal symbolism, creating portable versions of these powerful sites through carefully arranged talismans and ritual objects. The temporal aspects of warrior symbolism, the importance of seasons, lunar cycles, and astronomical events, created another layer of meaning that influenced every aspect of their lives. Different phases of the moon dictated when transformations should occur, while seasonal changes marked periods of spiritual renewal or dormancy. Solar and lunar eclipses were considered especially potent times for rituals and transformations, representing moments when the normal order of things temporarily dissolved, allowing for extraordinary spiritual activity. Modern interpretations of these ancient symbols have evolved but retained their core meanings. Contemporary representations of werewolves often emphasize the conflict between human rationality and animal instinct, drawing directly from Ulfhednar symbolism. The portrayal of berserk rage in popular media echoes traditional berserker imagery, while adding new dimensions suited to current cultural context. Yet beneath these modern reinterpretations lies the enduring power of the original symbols, continuing to shape our understanding of transformation, power, and the eternal struggle between civilization and nature. The rituals surrounding the transformation of Berserkers and Ulfhednar into their heightened states of being were steeped in esoteric practices and ancient wisdom, passed down through generations of warrior priests who understood the delicate balance between human consciousness and animal spirit. These ceremonies weren't casual affairs or spontaneous events, but carefully orchestrated rites that required extensive preparation, both physical and spiritual. The process began weeks before any planned battle, with initiates undergoing rigorous purification rituals designed to strip away the trappings of civilized life and reconnect them with their primal essence. This period of preparation wasn't merely about physical conditioning or mental focus. It was a complete restructuring of the initiate's being, a dismantling of their human identity to make room for the animal spirit that would eventually share their form. Central to these preparations was the construction of sacred spaces known as hofs, temporary structures built specifically for transformation rituals. These hofs were typically erected deep within forests or hidden valleys, places where the veil between the human world and the spirit realm grew thin. The structures themselves were constructed using specific types of wood, primarily oak and ash, believed to possess inherent magical properties. Inside, intricate patterns were carved into the walls, depicting scenes of hunting, warfare, and transformation, creating a visual network that helped guide the initiate's mind into the proper state of receptivity. These carvings weren't mere decoration. Each line and curve held specific meaning, acting as conduits for spiritual energy and focusing the initiate's will. The initiation process itself was divided into 3 distinct phases, each lasting several days and building upon the previous stage. During the first phase, called skin laus, or skin shedding, initiates would shed all clothing and personal belongings, symbolically casting off their human identity. This act of renunciation was accompanied by fasting and exposure to extreme temperatures, alternating between steam baths heated by volcanic rocks and ice-cold streams. The purpose wasn't merely physical endurance, but to break down the barriers of comfort and ego that separated man from beast. Elders would chant ancient verses, their voices rising and falling like the wind through trees, weaving a sonic environment that blurred the lines between language and animal sounds. These chants contained layers of meaning, some audible only to those attuned to certain frequencies, creating a multi-dimensional experience that engaged all senses. The initiates would sit in complete darkness for hours, listening to these chants while focusing on specific visualizations taught during their training. Each visualization corresponded to a particular aspect of their chosen animal spirit, gradually eroding their human consciousness and replacing it with primal awareness. As initiates progressed to the second phase, known as hugosetning or mind-setting, they would begin donning elements of their chosen animal spirit. For those walking the path of the bear, berserkers, this might include wearing bear claws around their necks or painting their bodies with symbols derived from bear tracks and markings. Wolf warriors, Ulfhednar, would bind wolf pelts around their waists or shoulders, believing that the spirit of the animal would recognize its own essence and respond to the call. This phase also involved the consumption of specific herbs and potions, brewed from ingredients gathered under precise astrological conditions. Among these, wolfsbane played a crucial role, though its exact preparation remains shrouded in mystery, with hints suggesting it was mixed with honey and fermented in birch bark containers buried beneath threshold stones of ancient dwellings. The preparation of these potions was itself a ritual, requiring specific gestures and incantations at each stage of the process. The liquid was never consumed directly, but rather applied to the skin or used to anoint ritual objects, allowing the initiate's body to absorb the magical properties gradually. The final phase, Hamram or Shape Strong, represented the culmination of the entire ritual process. Here, initiates would enter a specially prepared pit, lined with animal skins, and surrounded by rune-carved stones arranged in specific patterns corresponding to constellations associated with their chosen animal spirit. Elders would perform rituals mixing their own essence with that of the initiate, and the animal spirit being invoked. This act of sharing was believed to create a permanent bond between the three entities, allowing the warrior to draw upon the animal's strength and instincts whenever needed. The ceremony would reach its peak during twilight hours, when the boundaries between worlds naturally weakened, and participants would engage in ecstatic dances, mimicking the movements of their spirit animals until consciousness blurred and identities merged. These dances weren't random movements but carefully choreographed sequences that aligned with lunar cycles and seasonal energies, creating a resonance that amplified the transformation process. The elders would observe closely, ready to intervene if the transformation threatened to consume the initiate entirely, maintaining a delicate balance between human awareness and animal instinct. Throughout this entire process, specific tools and talismans played vital roles in facilitating the transformation. Among these, the Hamknota, or shape knot, stood as perhaps the most significant. These intricately tied cords, made from braided horsehair and sinew, were imbued with runic inscriptions and worn around the warrior's bicep. According to tradition, the knots contained the essence of the transformation spell, acting as both trigger and anchor for the altered state. Other important artifacts included Fylgja stones, small crystals or polished stones believed to house protective spirits that would guide the warrior during their transformed state, preventing complete loss of self-control. These stones were carefully selected based on their natural formations and energetic properties, often passed down through generations of warrior families. The timing of these rituals followed complex astrological patterns, with certain phases of the moon considered particularly auspicious for specific transformations. Full moons favored wolf spirits, while new moons were preferred for bear transformations, reflecting the natural behaviors of these animals. Seasonal considerations also played a crucial role, with spring and autumn equinoxes marking periods of powerful energetic shifts that enhanced the effectiveness of the ritual. During these times, multiple initiates would undergo transformations simultaneously, creating a collective surge of energy that amplified individual experience. Perhaps most fascinating were the mental disciplines developed to maintain control during transformation. Contrary to popular belief, successful Berserkers and Ulfhednar weren't those who lost all control but rather those who mastered the art of controlled madness. This required years of meditation practice, focusing on specific visualization techniques that allowed warriors to mentally construct spirit lodges within their minds, safe havens where their human consciousness could retreat, while the animal spirit took control of their physical form. The training involved learning to navigate these mental landscapes, creating detailed environments that could be accessed instantly during transformation. Warriors would spend countless hours developing these internal spaces, populating them with symbolic objects and guardian spirits that would help maintain their human awareness while in animal form. The role of community in these transformation rituals cannot be overstated. While the actual moment of shape-changing was a deeply personal experience, the support and participation of fellow warriors and spiritual guides were essential. Elders would maintain vigil throughout the process, chanting protective spells and monitoring the initiate's progress, ready to intervene if the transformation threatened to consume the warrior entirely. After successful completion, warriors would be welcomed back into the community not as mere humans but as living bridges between worlds, respected keepers of ancient knowledge and powerful protectors of their people. These rituals weren't one-time events, but ongoing practices that required regular renewal and reinforcement. Successful transformation demanded constant dedication, with warriors expected to maintain their connection to their animal spirits through daily practices, including specific breathing exercises, dietary restrictions, and regular visits to sacred sites associated with their chosen animal. Failure to maintain this connection could result in disastrous consequences, ranging from inability to transform when needed, to complete loss of self-control during crucial moments. Within the broader context of Norse mythology, the roles of Berserkers and Ulfhednar take on even greater significance. Norse cosmology is a vast, intricate system of gods, giants, spirits, and cosmic forces locked in perpetual motion, each element playing a crucial role in maintaining the balance of existence. In this grand network, the Berserkers and Ulfhednar occupy a unique position as intermediaries between the human realm and the wild, untamed forces of nature. Their transformations weren't simply acts of personal empowerment, but contributions to the cosmic order, helping to maintain the delicate equilibrium between civilization and chaos. For example, their ferocity in battle could be seen as an extension of Thor's thunderous wrath against the forces of destruction, or their cunning as a reflection of Loki's trickster nature, tempered by duty and honor. The Norse pantheon itself is rife with examples of gods taking animal forms or drawing upon animal attributes to achieve their goals, suggesting that the practices of Berserkers and Ulfhednar were inspired by divine precedent. Odin, the All-Father, famously rode Sleipnir, his eight-legged horse, and was accompanied by two ravens, Hugin and Munin, who served as his eyes and ears across the nine worlds. Freyja, goddess of love and war, traveled in a chariot drawn by cats, while Heimdallr, guardian of the Bifrost Bridge, possessed senses so acute he could hear grass grow and see hundreds of miles away. These divine associations underscore the importance of animal spirits in Norse mythology and highlight the sacred nature of the warrior-shapeshifters path. Moreover, the rituals and practices of Berserkers and Ulfhednar reflect the broader themes of sacrifice, transformation, and destiny that permeate Norse mythology. Central to their transformation process was the concept of shedding one's human identity, a literal and symbolic act of renunciation that mirrors the sacrifices demanded by the gods. In the poetic Edda, Odin himself sacrifices an eye to drink from Mimir's well of wisdom, gaining insight into the workings of fate. Similarly, Tur loses his hand to bind Fenrir, the great wolf destined to devour the sun during Ragnarok. These stories emphasize the necessity of sacrifice in the pursuit of power and knowledge, a theme echoed in the rigorous initiation rites of Berserkers and Ulfhednar. The shedding of clothing, personal belongings, and even aspects of one's identity during transformation rituals represents a willingness to give up the comforts and securities of civilized life in exchange for the raw power of the wild. This act of renunciation wasn't seen as a loss, but as a rebirth, a stepping onto a higher plane of existence, where human limitations no longer apply. The connection between Berserkers, Ulfhednar, and the concept of fate is particularly compelling. In Norse mythology, fate isn't a fixed destiny imposed from above, but a complex interplay of choices, actions, and cosmic forces. The Norns, three sisters who dwell beneath the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree, weave the threads of fate that determine the course of all existence. These cosmic weavers, Urd past, Verdandi present, and Skuld future, maintain an intricate balance between predetermined outcomes and individual agency. Warriors who embrace transformation magic position themselves as active participants in this cosmic drama, seeking to bend fate to their will through sheer force of character and mystical prowess. For Berserkers, their connection to bear spirits often aligned them with the concept of inevitability, embodying forces so overwhelming that resistance seemed futile. Their transformations were seen as manifestations of divine will, instruments of fate, wielding irresistible power. Each swing of their weapons carried not just physical weight, but the metaphysical weight of destiny itself, as if the threads of fate converged upon their action. In contrast, Ulfhednar viewed themselves as hunters of fate, using cunning and foresight to outmaneuver the Norns' designs and shape their own future. This fundamental difference in worldview shaped every aspect of their warrior culture, from training methods to spiritual practices to the way they interacted with their community. Both paths, however, acknowledged the inevitability of Ragnarok, the prophesied end of the world where gods and giants would clash in a final, apocalyptic battle. For Berserkers and Ulfhednar, their transformations weren't just about personal power, but about preparing for this ultimate confrontation, honing their skills and strengthening their bonds with animal spirits in anticipation of the day when they would stand alongside the gods in the final defense of Asgard. The sagas frequently depict these warriors as key figures during Ragnarok, fighting alongside Odin's Einherjar, the chosen fallen warriors residing in Valhalla, or standing at the forefront of battles against the monstrous forces of chaos. Their role wasn't merely martial, it was symbolic, representing humanity's struggle to maintain order amidst the encroaching tide of destruction. Even in death, their legacies endured, their names etched into the fabric of myth, as those who dared to challenge the inexorable march of fate. The integration of Berserkers and Ulfhednar into Norse mythology extended beyond battlefield heroics to encompass broader themes of cosmic balance and spiritual evolution. These warriors served as living embodiments of the primal energies that underpinned the Norse cosmos, bridging the gap between the human realm of Midgard and the wild, untamed forces of Jotunheim, the land of giants. Their transformations reflected the constant tension between order and chaos, civilization and wilderness, a duality mirrored in the eternal struggle between the Aesir gods and their chaotic counterparts, the Jotnar. Through their rituals and practices, Berserkers and Ulfhednar maintained this delicate equilibrium, ensuring that neither force overwhelmed the other. This responsibility placed them in a unique position within the Norse pantheon, neither fully aligned with the gods, nor completely separate from them. They operated on the fringes of divine authority, drawing upon ancient powers while remaining tethered to human concern. The spiritual dimension of their transformations also connected them to the concept of Hamknota, a Norse term referring to a person's inner spirit or soul force. Hamknota could be shared, transferred, or even inherited, serving as a reservoir of power that individuals could draw upon in times of need. For Berserkers and Ulfhednar, their ability to channel animal spirits represented an expansion of their Hamknota, allowing them to access reservoirs of strength and instinct far beyond ordinary human capacity. This process wasn't without risk. Over-reliance on external spirits could lead to a fragmentation of one's Hamknota, resulting in loss of identity or madness. The careful management of this spiritual resource was therefore crucial, requiring warriors to maintain a delicate balance between their human essence and the animal spirits they invoked. Elders and spiritual guides played a vital role in teaching initiates how to navigate this complex interplay, providing them with techniques to strengthen their Hamknota while protecting it from corruption. Another fascinating aspect of their role in Norse mythology lies in their relationship with the concept of Fylgja, guardian spirits believed to accompany individuals throughout their lives. These Fylgja often took animal forms, acting as protectors, guides, and omens of future events. For Berserkers and Ulfhednar, their transformations represented a deepening of this bond, elevating their Fylgja from passive companions to active participants in their lives. During rituals, elders would invoke the warrior's Fylgja, calling upon its presence to guide and protect the initiate during their transformation. Successful warriors were said to possess exceptionally powerful Fylgja, capable of manifesting in both physical and spiritual realms. These spirits became extensions of the warrior's will, amplifying their abilities and providing insight into hidden truths. Accounts described Fylgja appearing before battles, warning of impending danger or revealing weaknesses in enemy lines, further cementing their importance in the warrior tradition. The connection between Berserkers, Ulfhednar, and the afterlife also reveals deeper layers of meaning within Norse mythology. While many warriors aspired to join Odin in Valhalla after death, those who mastered transformation magic faced a different fate. Some sagas suggest that these warriors became part of a special class of spirits known as Einherjar Ulfhednar, wolf-skinned warriors who continued to serve the gods in the afterlife. Others claim that their souls merged with their animal spirits, becoming guardian entities tasked with protecting sacred sites or guiding lost souls. Regardless of the specifics, the idea of posthumous service underscores the enduring nature of their commitment to maintaining cosmic balance. Even in death, they remained bound to their duties, their sacrifices transcending the mortal plane to serve higher purposes. Throughout Norse mythology, the themes of duality, sacrifice, and transformation are omnipresent, reflecting the complexities of the human condition. and the eternal struggle to find meaning in a chaotic universe. Berserkers and Ulfhednar occupy a central place in this narrative, embodying the raw forces of nature, while grappling with the burdens of consciousness and morality. Their stories serve as cautionary tales, reminding listeners of the dangers inherent in seeking power beyond human limits. Yet they also inspire awe, showcasing the heights of achievement possible through dedication and courage. By exploring their roles within the broader context of Norse mythology, we gain insight into the values, fears, and aspirations of the people who created these legends, revealing timeless truths about the human experience. Delving deeper into the occult dimensions of Berserker and Ulfhednar traditions unveils a system of esoteric practices designed to unlock and harness supernatural forces. These rituals weren't mere superstitions or theatrical performances, but sophisticated systems of magic rooted in ancient wisdom, passed down through generations. Warrior priests who understood the delicate interplay between human consciousness and animal spirit. At the heart of these practices lay the principle of Hamknota, or soul travel, a concept central to Norse shamanism that allowed practitioners to project their consciousness into other forms, whether animal, elemental, or even ancestral. Hamknota wasn't limited to physical transformation. It encompassed astral projection, dreamwalking, and the ability to perceive alternate realities. For Berserkers and Ulfhednar, mastering Hamknota was essential, as it enabled them to navigate the liminal spaces between worlds, communing with spirits, and drawing upon their energies to enhance their combat prowess. One of the most enigmatic aspects of these rituals was the use of Galdra, or magical chants, which served multiple purposes throughout the transformation process. Galdra weren't simple incantations but complex sequences of sounds, tones, and rhythms believed to resonate with specific frequencies in the spiritual realm. Each chant corresponded to a particular phase of the transformation, beginning with low, guttural growls meant to awaken the primal instincts buried deep within the initiate's psyche. As the ritual progressed, the tone shifted to mimic the calls of wolves or the roars of bears, creating a sonic bridge between human and animal consciousness. Elders who led these ceremonies possessed voices trained to produce frequencies that altered brainwave activity, inducing trance states conducive to transformation. Modern interpretations might dismiss such techniques as primitive, but accounts suggest that these chants tapped into universal patterns of sound and vibration, activating latent neurological pathways and enabling extraordinary feats of perception and control. Central to these occult practices was the concept of cider, a form of Norse sorcery traditionally associated with women, but occasionally practiced by male warriors seeking to augment their abilities. Cider involved manipulating the web of weird, the connected threads of fate woven by the Norns, to influence events and outcomes. For Berserkers and Ulfhednar, cider provided tools to navigate the complexities of destiny, allowing them to foresee potential dangers, identify vulnerabilities in enemies, and even alter the flow of battle through subtle manipulations of energy fields. Practitioners employed various implements during cider rituals, including staffs carved with runes, crystals imbued with specific intentions, and specially prepared charms called Vordlocker. These objects acted as focal points for directing magical energy, channeling it toward desired outcomes. The use of cider among warrior shapeshifters highlights the depth of their mystical knowledge, demonstrating that their powers extended far beyond brute strength or enhanced reflexes. Another critical element of their occult practices was the invocation of Vetir, or nature spirits, which inhabited everything from trees and rivers to mountains and winds. Vetir weren't abstract concepts, but sentient entities with distinct personalities and preferences, requiring respectful interaction to secure their cooperation. Berserkers and Ulfhednar cultivated relationships with specific Vetir, associated with their chosen animal spirits, offering prayers, libations, and offerings at designated sites. Over time, these relationships evolved into symbiotic partnerships, with the Vetir lending their strength and wisdom in exchange for the warrior's protection and devotion. Accounts describe warriors entering trance-like states during battles, communicating telepathically with these spirits to coordinate attacks or evade threats. This communion with Vetir exemplifies the holistic approach of Norse spirituality, recognizing no separation between the material and immaterial realms. The role of dreams and visions in Berserker and Ulfhednar practices cannot be overstated. Dreams were considered direct communications from the spirit world, offering guidance, warnings, and revelations about future events. Initiates underwent rigorous training to interpret these messages accurately, learning to distinguish between mundane dreams and prophetic visions. Dream incubation rituals were common, involving sleep in sacred spaces believed to amplify psychic sensitivity. Participants would surround themselves with talismans and herbs associated with their chosen animal spirits, creating environments conducive to receiving clear and meaningful visions. Upon waking, they would record their experiences in symbolic carvings or paintings, preserving the insights gained for future reference. These records formed part of a larger body of esoteric knowledge, passed down through generations and constantly refined based on new revelation. Astrological considerations played a significant role in timing and executing these rituals, reflecting the Norse belief in the connection of celestial and terrestrial forces. Specific constellations, planetary alignments, and lunar phases influence the effectiveness of spells and transformations, dictating when certain activities should occur. For example, rituals invoking bear spirits typically aligned with the constellation Ursa Major, while those focusing on wolves coincided with Canis Major. Lunar cycles determined the intensity and duration of transformations, with full moons amplifying power levels and new moons favoring subtlety and stealth. Seasonal transitions marked periods of heightened spiritual activity, during which multiple initiates might undergo simultaneous transformations to create collective surges of energy. This attention to astrological detail demonstrates the sophisticated understanding of cosmic rhythms underlying these practices, emphasizing their foundation in empirical observation rather than blind faith. The preparation of ritual spaces and tools followed equally meticulous guidelines, ensuring that each component contributed to the overall efficacy of the ceremony. Sacred circles drawn using powdered herbs and minerals delineated boundaries between mundane and magical realms, protecting participants from unwanted interference. Runes inscribed along these perimeters served dual purposes, anchoring the ritual space to specific planes of existence and warding off malevolent entities. Ritual garments, crafted from materials imbued with symbolic significance, acted as conduits for channeling spiritual energy, enhancing the wearer's connection to their chosen animal spirit. Weapons and armor bore similar enhancements, incorporating elements like meteoric iron, dragon's resin, and powdered gemstones believed to amplify magical properties. Every detail mattered, from the direction participants faced during invocations to the sequence in which ingredients were added to potions. This level of precision reflects the profound respect accorded to these practices, acknowledging their power to shape reality itself. Training in these occult arts demanded years of dedication, with initiates progressing through increasingly demanding stages of instruction. Beginners focused on mastering basic techniques like breath control, visualization, and energy manipulation, building foundational skills necessary for advanced work. Intermediate practitioners delved into more complex disciplines, including rune casting, spirit communication, and elemental manipulation, expanding their repertoire of magical abilities. Advanced students tackled the most challenging aspects of the tradition, exploring topics like multidimensional travel, soul retrieval, and the creation of permanent bindings with animal spirit. Each stage required passing rigorous tests designed to assess not only technical proficiency, but also moral integrity and psychological resilience. Failure at any point could result in expulsion from the program or, worse, catastrophic consequences stemming from incomplete mastery of dangerous techniques. The ethical framework governing these practices emphasized responsibility above all else, recognizing the immense power wielded by those who mastered them. Codes of conduct dictated acceptable uses of magical abilities, prohibiting actions deemed harmful to innocents or disruptive to natural order. Violations carried severe penalties, ranging from temporary banishment to permanent exile from the community. Elders maintained vigilant oversight, intervening swiftly to prevent abuses of power or reckless experimentation. This regulatory system ensured that these traditions served their intended purpose of maintaining cosmic balance rather than descending into chaos through unchecked ambition. The emphasis on ethical behavior underscores the maturity and sophistication of these practices, distinguishing them from mere displays of supernatural prowess. Despite centuries of suppression and adaptation, Traces of these occult practices persist in modern occult traditions, albeit in modified forms. Contemporary practitioners draw upon elements of Berserker and Ulfhednar magic, integrating them into broader systems of Western esotericism. Techniques like energy manipulation, astral projection, and spirit invocation owe much to these ancient methods, adapted to suit contemporary sensibilities while retaining core principles. The enduring legacy of these practices speaks to their fundamental relevance, offering insights into the nature of consciousness and transformation. By studying these traditions, we gain access to a wealth of knowledge about the human potential to transcend ordinary limitations and engage with forces beyond our immediate comprehension. The journey to uncover the intricate practices, rituals, and philosophies of the Berserkers and Ulfhednar has been a painstaking process, piecing together fragments of ancient knowledge scattered across centuries of oral tradition, written records, and archaeological discoveries. Modern understanding of these warrior shapeshifters owes much to the diligent efforts of scholars, historians, linguists, and occult practitioners who have dedicated their lives to decoding the cryptic symbols, sagas, and artifacts left behind by the Norse people. These sources, though often incomplete or fragmented, provide invaluable glimpses into a world where the boundaries between human and animal, mortal and divine, were far more fluid than contemporary perspectives might imagine. One of the primary sources for modern knowledge of Berserkers and Ulfhednar lies in the Icelandic sagas, epic prose narratives that recount the exploits of legendary heroes, kings, and warriors during the Viking Age. Among these, Egil's Saga, Ynglinga Saga, and Hervalar Saga contain some of the most detailed references to these warrior traditions. Written in the 13th century by authors such as Snorri Sturluson, these texts preserve earlier oral traditions that had been passed down through generations. While they are not without bias or embellishment, they serve as foundational documents for understanding the cultural and spiritual significance of these warriors. For example, Snorri's Ynglinga Saga describes Odin's elite warriors entering a state of berserkergang, a frenzied battle trance characterized by invulnerability to pain and overwhelming ferocity. Similarly, other sagas depict Ulfhednar donning wolf pelts and channeling the predatory instincts of wolves on the battlefield. Despite their literary nature, these accounts reflect a deep-rooted belief in the transformative power of ritual and spirit communion, offering clues about how these practices were perceived and valued by medieval Norse society. Another critical source of information comes from the Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, two cornerstone works of Norse mythology compiled in the 13th century. The Poetic Edda, a collection of Old Norse poems, includes verses that hint at the mystical underpinnings of shapeshifting and transformation magic. For instance, the poem Harbardsljóð contains references to warriors adopting animal forms, while Völuspá, the prophecy of the seeress, speaks of cosmic forces and primal energies that align closely with the worldview of Berserkers and Ulfhednar. The Prose Edda, authored by Snorri Sturluson, provides additional context by explaining the mythological framework within which these warriors operated, detailing their connections to gods like Odin and Thor, as well as their roles in maintaining cosmic balance. Together, these texts form a rich tapestry of mythological and historical data, bridging the gap between divine inspiration and earthly practice. Archaeological discoveries have also played a pivotal role in reconstructing the material culture and symbolic systems associated with these warrior traditions. Excavations of Viking burial sites, sacrificial pits, and sacred enclosures have unearthed artifacts imbued with esoteric meaning, shedding light on the tools and talismans used in transformation rituals. For example, amulets carved with bear claws or wolf heads, often found alongside weapons and personal belongings, suggest the importance of animal symbolism in warrior identity. Rune-inscribed stones discovered near ancient Hofs, temples reveal the astrological and magical calculations employed in timing rituals, confirming the sophistication of Norse astrological knowledge. Perhaps most intriguing are the remains of ceremonial pits lined with animal skins and surrounded by rune-carved stones, which correspond directly to descriptions of transformation spaces mentioned in sagas and eddas. These findings provide tangible evidence of the physical environments where initiates underwent their metamorphoses, validating many aspects of the written record. In addition to textual and archaeological evidence, Folkloric traditions preserved in rural Scandinavia offer another layer of insight into the survival of these practices, long after the decline of paganism. Even as Christianity spread throughout the region, elements of Berserker and Ulfhednar magic persisted in local customs, disguised as folk remedies, agricultural ceremonies, or seasonal festivals. Practices such as wearing animal pelts during winter solstice celebrations or invoking protective spirits before hunts echo the techniques described in ancient texts, suggesting that these traditions adapted rather than disappeared entirely. Ethnographers and folklorists in the 19th and early 20th centuries documented these remnants, preserving them for future study. Figures like Jacob Grimm, whose seminal work Teutonic Mythology explored the continuity of Germanic spiritual traditions, highlighted the enduring influence of Norse mysticism on European folk. His research helped establish links between medieval warrior practices and later manifestations of shape-shifting lore, including werewolf legends in continental Europe. The revival of interest in Norse spirituality during the late 19th and early 20th centuries further contributed to the rediscovery of Berserker and Ulfhednar traditions. This resurgence coincided with broader movements exploring pre-Christian European religions, driven in part by romantic nationalism and a desire to reconnect with ancestral roots. Scholars like Rudolf Simek, Hilda Ellis Davidson, and Jesse Bayek conducted extensive studies on Norse mythology and warrior culture, synthesizing archaeological findings, textual analysis, and comparative mythology to paint a more comprehensive picture of these practices. Their work laid the groundwork for contemporary interpretations, influencing fields ranging from anthropology to esoteric spirituality. Additionally, modern practitioners of heathenry, a revived form of Norse paganism, have sought to reconstruct and adapt these ancient rituals, drawing upon surviving texts and archaeological evidence to create living tradition. Through experimentation and scholarly collaboration, they have shed new light on the practical applications of Berserker and Ulfhednar magic, demonstrating its relevance beyond academic inquiry. Occult researchers and practitioners have also played a significant role in interpreting and reimagining these warrior traditions. Figures like Aleister Crowley and later esoteric writers drew upon Norse symbolism and mythology in their explorations of transformation and altered states of consciousness. Crowley's concept of magic as the science and art of causing change in accordance with will resonates deeply with the principles underlying Berserker and Ulfhednar practices, particularly the emphasis on harnessing primal forces and transcending ordinary limitations. More recently, authors and occultists such as Edred Thorson and Stephen Flowers have delved into the runic and shamanic dimensions of Norse spirituality, offering insights into the psychological and metaphysical mechanisms behind transformation magic. Thorson's work, grounded in both academic rigor and practical experience, bridges the gap between scholarly analysis and lived practice, providing a framework for modern individuals to engage with these ancient traditions. Despite the wealth of information available, challenges remain in fully reconstructing the nuances of Berserker and Ulfhednar practices. Many original texts were lost or destroyed during the Christianization of Scandinavia, leaving gaps in the historical record. Surviving accounts often reflect the biases of their authors, whether medieval Christian scribes condemning pagan practices or Renaissance scholars romanticizing Viking culture. Furthermore, the secretive nature of these warrior traditions means that much of their knowledge was never committed to writing, relying instead on oral transmission and experiential learning. As a result, modern interpretations must navigate a landscape of incomplete evidence, speculative reconstructions, and evolving cultural contexts. Nevertheless, the cumulative efforts of scholars, archaeologists, folklorists, and practitioners have succeeded in piecing together a remarkably detailed portrait of these enigmatic warriors, revealing a tradition as complex and multifaceted as the societies that birthed. The convergence of these diverse disciplines underscores the interdisciplinary nature of studying Berserkers and Ulfhednar. Linguistics provides access to the original meanings embedded in Old Norse texts, while archaeology grounds abstract concepts in material reality. Anthropology and ethnography illuminate the social and cultural frameworks within which these practices flourished, while esoteric and occult studies explore their psychological and spiritual dimensions. Together, these approaches form a holistic methodology capable of addressing the myriad facets of this warrior tradition, from its practical applications to its philosophical implications. By combining rigorous scholarship with creative interpretation, we gain not only a deeper understanding of Berserkers and Ulfhednar, but also a renewed appreciation for the ingenuity and complexity of Norse spiritual thought. This multifaceted approach ensures that the legacy of these ancient warriors continues to inspire and challenge us, inviting further exploration into the mysteries of human potential and our place within the cosmos. The exploration of Berserkers and Ulfhednar reveals layers of meaning and complexity that challenge conventional understanding of historical spiritual practices. The sophisticated integration of environmental, psychological, and spiritual elements demonstrates an advanced approach to human transformation that goes far beyond simple physical enhancement or supernatural ability. The careful calibration of every aspect of the transformation process, from environmental factors to psychological conditioning to astrological timing, creates a comprehensive system for accessing and managing altered states of consciousness that remains relevant to contemporary explorations of human potential. The persistence of these practices through historical upheavals and cultural shifts suggests that they tap into fundamental aspects of human consciousness and spiritual development that transcend specific historical contexts or cultural backgrounds. The study of these ancient warrior traditions offers valuable insights into the nature of power, transformation, and human potential that continue to challenge and expand our understanding of what is possible through dedicated spiritual practice and conscious evolution. The rituals surrounding these warriors weren't merely acts of personal empowerment, but contributions to the cosmic order, helping to maintain the delicate equilibrium between civilization and chaos. Their connection to Norse mythology, the concept of fate, and the broader themes of sacrifice and transformation underscores their significance as intermediaries between worlds, walking the fine line between human consciousness and animal instinct. Whether operating openly in remote valleys or secretly within urban centers, these warriors continued to serve as bridges between worlds, maintaining vital connections between human society and the spirit realm. Their legacy endures not just in folklore or myth, but in the enduring fascination with the boundaries of human potential and our place within the larger cosmic order. The sophisticated understanding of consciousness management, spiritual technology, and environmental symbolism demonstrated by these ancient practices suggests that they contain wisdom that might inform modern approaches to spiritual development and personal transformation. The continued relevance of these themes in contemporary spiritual discourse indicates that the questions raised by these warrior traditions remain unanswered and continue to challenge human understanding of the relationship between civilization and nature, order and chaos, humanity and beast.